Welcome to Jurassic Park.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while?
Do you want to know what it is?
There's no knowing where you might be swept off to.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Shepherds we shall be, for thee, my Lord, for thee.
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
There's a special rug in hell reserved for people who waste good scotch.
He peed on my rug!
He peed on the dude's rug.
Do your worst.
Final report of the commercial starship Nostromo.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Let's pray before we begin this pod. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
The power of one, the power of two, the power of many. Welcome to your feature presentation. I am your host, Heath Fall. With me, the walking IMDb, the man himself, the butter to my popcorn, Andrew McKay.
Wow. You know, my mom doesn't like butter on her popcorn.
I know.
This is episode 4 of mentioning how my mom eats popcorn.
Yeah. That's because I think I bring it up every single week because it's fascinating to me.
Oh, man.
Your mom doesn't accept the butter, but that's okay. It's all right. Well, welcome everyone to your feature presentation. We've got a fun show for you today. This is going to be all about the Acolyte. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start off. It's going to be very spoiler heavy. So if you don't want spoilers, we'll let you know when that's going to come up. First off, we're talking about movies coming out this weekend. So let's dive right into that. Andrew, do you have our movies?
Yeah, so we have Trap, M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's about a father and his teen daughter who attend a pop concert only to realize they've entered the center of a dark and sinister event. Has Josh Hartnett, Haley Mills, and Allison Pill in it.
I was going to say, should we talk about spoilers? Because the trailer pretty much spoils the premise of this movie.
Yeah, but I will say, give us the down low on the trailer because it's also a Shyamalan movie, and it's very likely that every time you see one of his movies, you think, oh, I know what's going to happen, and then that doesn't necessarily happen. So give us the trailer down low.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I assume, so this is a twist, so if you don't want spoilers for Trap, don't listen to this, but it's also a Shyamalan movie, and so I'm assuming there's going to be another twist.
Yes, yeah.
Which I think, so the premise of this is this guy is actually a serial killer, and this whole concert was a trap to catch him. And the movie is basically him trying to escape. So that's in the trailer. So I don't know if it's going to change or maybe that's not what it seems. But to me, that makes me want to go see it because I'm like, that's a really cool, interesting premise. Mm-hmm. So that's why I want to share that because this isn't a spoiler of like, oh, I've seen the movie, I don't care to go. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That makes me excited to go.
Yeah, and then to imagine that it will get more interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's what M. Night be doing.
Yeah. And even if you don't like the twist, I think knowing that how he does movies, it makes it more encouraging to go. It's like there's going to be something to figure out, you know. Mm-hmm. So that's exciting. That'll be fun. I'd love to go see that movie. Yeah. What else we got next?
Yeah, next is also another serial killer movie called Harold and the Purple Crayon.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yeah. Just kidding, not a serial killer movie. This is inside of his book. Adventurous Harold can make anything come to life simply by drawing it. After he grows up and draws himself off the book's pages and into the physical world, Harold finds he has a lot to learn about real life.
I feel like this movie is not going to do well. And it looks interesting, but I think it's not going to do well because If just came out. Yeah. And I could see if at a glance you could mistake these movies for each other. You know, just like premise-wise.
Yeah, very similar genres. It's like partially animated and
kid imagination.
It's just like a kid's comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, which is unfortunate, but I think I don't know. I hope it does well, but
yeah.
Are you ready for my story about Zachary Levi?
Oh, please.
Okay, so I have a personal connection with him. So
okay.
No, I was around someone who had a personal connection with him. Oh. Anyways, so back in college, he had a website. I don't think it's still going, and I don't know the name of the website, but it was basically like a nerd center like website. This is like, hey, this is a discussion board. This is a place to talk about all these things and blah blah blah. And like it was like run by him, and it was cool. Whatever.
Okay.
So he was looking for moderators. So one of my roommates wanted to be a moderator. He's like, hey, I'll submit my thing and I'll help kind of monitor the pages and blah, blah, blah. And he got accepted to be a moderator, which is not like a crazy big deal, right? Like a lot of people are moderators on sites, but it was really cool. Oh yeah, my buddy is Adam Freed, little shout out. So we were sitting at McDonald's. There was like 5 of us, right? After this had happened. And he got a phone call and he looks at his phone. And he answers it, and he goes, hello? Yes? Of course. Yeah. Happy to. Thank you. Bye. Click. Normal phone call, right?
Okay.
I was like, who is that? And he goes, oh, that was Zachary Levi. He was calling all of his moderators to say like, hey, thanks for being a part, and like, I'm excited to have you on board, and blah, blah, blah. Like personalized phone calls. Like, so he just talked to Zachary Levi, and it was fun. Like this was during like Chuck, like heights, you know. Yep. So like he was like, oh my gosh, this is pretty cool. Like, yeah, it was so funny, and he was like, I think excited, but just like his like normal, like how do you act normal to like getting a call from an actor, like, sure,
happy. Yeah.
We're just like chowing down at McDonald's. It was so funny.
Oh, that's hilarious. I wonder.
All right, now your Zachary Levi story.
Oh, yeah, of course. So yesterday, he came to my house.
Oh yeah,
and
he's your son's godfather, right?
No, that is Johnny Depp.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But obviously very similarly looking. But Zachary Levi came to my house, and I said, "Hey, punk, there's a no soliciting sign. Get off my porch." And he said, do you want to see my movie? And I closed the door in his face. And so I don't think we're on good terms anymore.
Yeah. He handed you a physical poster, and you were like, what is this, If? Get it out of here.
What is this, If? The comedy children's movie, partially animated hit of the year? Get it out of my face.
I do wonder when movies happen. So John Krasinski didn't do A Quiet Place 3, I guess. It's like a prequel, so it's the third movie.
Well, he was a producer.
Yes, correct. But he didn't like write and direct it, I guess.
Right,
like he did the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I often wonder, too, because it wasn't bad, but I think this Quiet Place wasn't as well received.
Sure.
I saw it. I liked it. My reviews on
Likewise.
YouTube.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, that was funny. I liked that.
That cracked me up. But I wonder, too, with someone like this, because unfortunately If didn't do well either. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's got to be that feeling of, should I have just stayed with the previous project?
Oh, interesting.
You know, because he didn't do The Quiet Place 3 and did If, and you wonder, like, oh, maybe I should have just kept doing that, you know? I don't know. That's interesting, but go see what's the movie called?
Harold and the Purple Crayon.
The Purple Crayon. All right, The Acolyte time. We're going for it. Here we are. So we're going to do full spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers for The Acolyte, just jump to the end and we'll tell you, I don't know, what to go see, I guess. You can hear us say, go see a movie. So that'll be fun. So let's start off here. What are just your initial thoughts about the series?
I really like it. I would say if I was forced into a 5-star rating system.
Forced.
No. If I was, what do they call in the show? The tether, the
thread.
The thread. If I was threaded into a 5-star rating system, I would probably do a solid 4.0 out of 5. Really liked it. Not sure if I loved it, but close. Usually I can tell how much I like a project by how much I talk to other people about it and ask people straight up, like, hey, have you seen this? Did you watch this episode? And I was talking nonstop about it. So it was very fun. Really liked it. What do you think?
I kind of hated it.
Really? Yeah. There's diversity in our podcast, Heath.
Yeah, I kind of hated it. I have a lot of issues myself. So we haven't talked about this, which I thought was perfect.
I'm so excited.
I was like, it was a save it for the pod moment because I'm like,
yeah.
Did you see it? Yep, I saw it. And then I was like, let's just not talk about it. We got to do a pod episode. No, I very much disliked it, but with a few caveats. Like, quite a few strong caveats. The only thing I can compare it to is The Hobbit, because there was a lot of things that I disliked about The Hobbit, but I like The Hobbit more than The Acolyte.
What?
Yeah. But here's the thing with The Hobbit. It's like when someone talked to me about, like, what's better, The Hobbit or The Rings of Power? I think The Hobbit is like, The Rings of Power is at a certain point. I can't number it. I don't know. But let's just say that's in between. I think The Hobbit is, parts of it are worse than The Rings of Power, and I think parts of it are better. It kind of jumps around. Like,
yeah,
we could do a whole episode on the podcast, which we should on the.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But The Hobbit to me is like, there's like GoPros down a river. I'm like,
yeah,
seriously.
Garbage.
But then there's like riddles in the dark, and it's like these two actors doing a play in the middle of them, and it's amazing. So it's like there's highs, lows, you know. The Acolyte, I feel like, has so many lows to me that I disliked, and I really struggle with it. But there was also some really cool stuff in it that I'm like, this is a must-see for Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff that they redeemed from Disney era stuff.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So, like, I am conflicted as an Anakin Skywalker type. So let's go break it down real quick. What, like, I kind of want to do a per episode thing. But maybe just start with saying, like, what were some of your loves? And then maybe I can kind of go with some of my dislikes and likes, I guess.
Yeah. Obviously, a love of mine was the successfully hidden villain. By episode 4, the episode that ended with the stranger, like, force pushing all the Jedi away. By episode 4, everyone was pretty secure. Like, okay, this is Khmer. That's where we've been led to. But that wasn't really on the radar for, especially me, but I didn't really see it on the radar for a lot of people until that episode. So I loved, like, being strides into a show, 3 episodes in, before you know who the mysterious dark side figure is. I liked that it was like, that was one aspect of the mystery. Big, like, murder mystery fan. So I felt like we got a taste of that. Even though you saw her face when she was killing Jedi, it was like, but what's going on? Like, why? There's just so many whys. Why? What is happening? Well, like, why did she do that? So that's an initial love. What's a love for you? What did you like?
Nothing. No, just kidding. I thought it started great. I thought having a dark side user confront a Jedi was a really cool thing. And, like, the whole like kung fu part was, I thought it was great. I thought the fighting was great. And then when we started with Osha, I thought it was a very interesting setup, because I'm like, May was a twin of Osha, and at that point you're like, are these the same people? You don't know that they're two different people. Well, kind of, whatever. You know what I mean? And so that was cool, because I'm like, there was mystery already. So you established a mystery, good opening hook, and man, did this feel like a Cal Kestis. type figure, like a guy just like working on a rig type thing, you know, very Darth Bane, like this potential, like this powerful person who is doing a fairly mundane job. And there's a lot of hatred with this show. We both can see, you know, like we talked about the review bombs before, we talked about all this stuff. And it's funny because I love it when people nitpick about stuff as if this is the first time Star Wars has done something.
Right.
So I'm not one of those people. When they're like, oh my gosh, there's fire in space, that's stupid. And then like episode 1, it's like the blockade runner or the Nubian.
Yeah, they run the blockade to get out of Naboo.
And an issue I have with episode 1 is why don't they run it on the way back? Anyone ever thought about that? Like they're like
just
this whole
go
dramatic
back.
scene, getting away, get damaged, so they have to go to another planet, and then they just like on the way back, they just like cut to landing on the planet.
Like, we made it and they didn't see us. Like, how?
Good. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, that was kind of some loves. I think the lightsaber fighting was really good.
Yeah.
I think what happened is the prequels became very much choreographed, very like made to look cool, but maybe not an actual sword fight as they were in the original. I love the original sword fighting. I think it's very desperate, very kind of old Hollywood feel. But then in the prequels, it just looks cool. Like I love it. Like I think Duel of the Fates and Battle of the Heroes are just really fun, cool looking sword fights.
Yeah.
But I think Disney, that's a big issue with Disney, I think, is they backpedaled on what people didn't like about the prequels. So I think the lightsaber fights were really lacking in the sequel trilogy. It's like,
Absolutely.
well, these aren't quality old school Hollywood sword fights or super like planned out, rehearsed things. They are just like, it felt like, you know, Kylo and Rey, it felt like they were just like fighting with clubs. You know what I mean? And so I think this did kind of bring back some of those great sword fights.
Yeah.
And Sith kebab, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah, dude.
Sith kebab.
That was crazy.
Yeah, and then a lot of cool stuff. I'll say this, like my last thought of like wrapping up this section of things that I liked about the show is there was a lot of lore building too.
Yeah.
I mean, Plagueis. I mean, you show me Plagueis, first time live action, amazing. And just like the Cortosis, the Darth Smiley, the Stranger figure, there's a lot of like cool stuff about it. And I will say this too, this has the show against it, as I think the High Republic era is one of the most boring Star Wars eras of all time. Like,
sure.
I just don't like anything that they've brought us out yet. And so that's hard for me, because I'm like, you put something in certain eras of Star Wars that I'm like Clone Wars. I'm like, hey, we're doing a movie in space and Clone Wars. Like, sweet, I'm already excited about it. That's fun. Like, you say High Republic, and I'm like, it seems dull. It seems formulaic. So they already had that going against them for me. But at the same time, I was more interested in this because of this show. Like, this show really kind of combated like a cool kind of staging ground for me. So those are some of my positives.
Yeah, I will say that the High Republic era was a positive for me going in, because I knew that they had to do something that they've really never done before, or really done since, I guess, Rogue One, which is everyone dies. And I think that was going around, like, especially when, like the first time that the Stranger shows his lightsaber, everyone's like, okay, all those people have to die. But I don't think we were prepared for everyone to die in one episode. Like 7 of the 9 Jedi, or 7 of the 8 Jedi, he killed them all. And like, you haven't had that kind of, like, this is a bad guy and he's going to kill all the heroes in such a long time in Star Wars. So we haven't had that, you know? Like, what, decades since the the prequels, like Anakin killing, like walking through the Jedi Temple, and then Rogue One was like the Death Star killed the whole planet, but like part of the planet. But anyway, so that was really intriguing for me because the High Republic is kind of like benchmarked with the time of peace, right? So then it spoke to me with like there has to be secret, hidden stuff. There's going to be a lot of assassinations. There's going to be a lot of like this group of people found out and they're all going to die. There's going to be like political drama, which there wasn't very many like political drama scenes except for towards the end. But I find that all that stuff very intriguing. So the High Republic era, I think, was a net positive for me. So you're off the pod.
I'm off the pod. You're out of order. That's it. I quit.
Yeah.
You can't fire me. I quit. Should we do a Christmas episode about the claymation Christmas movies like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Those are another thing that are always in my subconscious. Like anytime somebody says you're fired or I'm fired, whatever, it's like, you can't fire me, I quit. That's just in my brain. It's like a roller.
It's ready to go.
It's like, pop, 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 pop.
Yep.
So another positive that I thought about is they went there, right? They killed characters. And I think that's a big issue with a lot of properties right now is no one can be dead.
Mm-hmm. Especially Star Wars recently. The back to tank era.
Yeah, the
people are calling
era. And it's weird because a lot of people with pro Star Wars talk about Dave Filoni as our guy.
Mm-hmm.
But look at what he did with Ahsoka. I liked Ahsoka a lot, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He had a character be stabbed in the upper body with a lightsaber and was fine the next day. I'm like, we saw Qui-Gon get stabbed and died because that is what a lightsaber should be, right? It's powerful. Yeah. This is a scary weapon. Another thing is I feel like in this Disney era, lightsabers tend to feel, especially in the shows, feel more like a light stick.
Yes.
But in the Acolyte, and they've done this in some movies too, like they did this during the Kylo and Rey fight, is when you swing, when you're in a forest, and you swing a lightsaber and you hit a tree, the tree gets halved.
Yeah, the tree is just not there anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a destructive weapon. So I will say this too, like Leslie Headland, I really believes respects and loves Star Wars and also treated the lightsaber with respect because you get stabbed even when you're a mystical force wave or whatever.
Like
butter,
half smoke
goes. Because that's what it should be, right? It's kind of like a religious, mystical weapon, too. It's not just a beam of light. It's like, this is the thing that kills a witch who's trying to vapor. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, that's cool to me. And so, they went there. They killed off main characters, brutally so, and they stayed dead. I really appreciate that because then it makes it feel real. It makes it feel like Saul dies at the end. And I don't question if he's dead. You know what I mean? I'm like, if you keep bringing everyone back in the show, you're already like, okay, he's probably going to come back, right?
Then there's no consequence. Like, so Kamir then isn't that bad of a guy. What murder?
He was the best guy around.
Right? Like, and I think that's a really brilliant thing to do with his character as well. Is like he's the intentionally he is. Shows Osha that he is like the more tempered, more logical one of between him and the Jedi, and he's showing her the lies of the Jedi to see through them.
I've seen the lies of the Jedi.
I too have seen the lies of the Jedi. So he's showing her that kind of stuff, and you're like listening to him talk, and you're like, yeah, that's kind of making sense. And then they put that immediately adjacent to like Soul's downfall or his mistakes, I should say, like all the different ways that Soul and the other four, Kilnaka, Torben, how like all the mistakes that they made, and you're like, ooh, that guy who made terrible decisions and killed people might be the better one. maybe it at least gets the thought in your mind. Like, I can see why someone would go, oh, the dark side. And I think that, like, you get a fear for a character, and then you understand that character, and you're, like, still afraid of them, but you're like, oh, I can get it. I get that.
Well, I mean, the dark side is a pathway to many abilities that some would consider to be unnatural.
Unnatural.
Are you ready for my hate?
Yeah,
you ready?
You got like a big one?
I've got list of things I don't
no.
like about this show.
Okay.
And I'd love to hear what you have to say. Because that's the thing that's tough about this show is, like, there is some good in there. And also, here goes me, a guy who's never made a movie, you know, critiquing something that was made in the past. Because hindsight is so powerful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about people who critique stuff, and we never wanted to be a podcast that just critiques, because I'm like, it's very easy to critique something after it's happened.
Yes.
You know, I'm sure the director, like, themselves could be like, you know what? This could have been better, and this could have been executed better.
Oh, yeah.
So here we go. I just got some things that I could not stand about this series.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The flashback episodes. Episode 3 and episode 7.
Really? Okay.
3, I thought was so stupid. I thought it was bad acting, and I thought it was confusing. It didn't make sense. Was it Mother Anastasia?
Yeah.
Her whole purpose is to teach these girls about the power of many, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how we started off this episode.
Yep.
And she goes, the power of one, and she overcomes them. And then she's like, but the power of two. It's like, oh, okay, so it's 2-on-1, so it's going to show this becomes, and then she still beats them.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the little lesson ends.
And she goes, did you see how I beat them, but not as much?
I was just like, what? Like, this should be a classic, like, one chord can snap, but 2 chords make a bond break. Like,
Ape
it's like, what
alone,
are you talking
weak. Ape together, strong.
So I didn't like that. Okay, nobody cared about anyone dying in this episode.
In
Nobody
episode 3?
cared. Any of the episodes. Okay, so...
Oh, okay.
Okay, I should wrap up. So the flashback episodes, I thought, like, the episode 3 was just dumb. Episode 7 was a little bit better. You should have just put them together. It was dumb to separate them, and stop taking a whole episode break. We only have 8 episodes. Don't give me an entire episode on a flashback that it could have been explained in a couple lines of dialogue. I'm like, and also I think it's better that we don't see everything, because that leaves it up to interpretation. Because then you could come away being like, do you believe Saul or do you believe May? You know, that's a more interesting place to be. Man. So then, Mother Anastasia with all of her stuff, and it's just like the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. I thought was such a cringy part in this show.
A little cheeky for you.
I was just like, oh, what is this? So nobody cared about people dying in this episode. So we have a really cool episode, in my opinion, where Jackie, or as I call her, Chitara from Thundercats. Jackie gets brutally killed. It is like such a gut-wrenching, like, whoa moment. Like, he turns the lightsaber on 3 times. He like basically uses it as like a small like gun, like a kills her. Yord gets his head snapped. Yeah, like these are brutal killings. We never hear anybody say their name again. Saul has a moment of like, oh my gosh, all of this just happened. Osha never says a word about it. Like, Yord was his friend, was kind of a friend, at least a classmate, and she was kind of sweet on Jackie. Like, they were at least buddies.
Yeah,
you know. Never mentioned him again, and then she's like all fine with Kamir and be like, hey, he just murdered people, and you didn't even say, but you killed them. Like, she did not care at all. Also, when the Jedi show up, maybe you could blame this on Jedi intuition, but no one checks the bodies. What would you do if you ran into a room and you saw a bunch of like victims that have been like shot? Go check their pulse. Are they still alive?
Oh.
And Vernestra is just like,
they're all dead.
This is sad. They're all dead. Same thing with Saul when he died.
You don't think that they could sense their life force.
Yeah, but they didn't say that when they landed. You know what I mean? Like, if that was the case, it just seemed to me like death did not matter.
Yeah,
Once
and
you're
you know
dead-
what? Obi-Wan does check the pulse of a downed Jedi in the Geonosian arena.
Ooh. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, and he dips the head. Like, he's checking
Yeah.
to see if he's like, that is huge. That is really if anybody, I've never even heard that argument. I can make my own arguments for fun. But if anybody has that argument of like, this is like, well, they could probably feel that they weren't alive. It's like, well, Obi-Wan couldn't, and Obi-Wan's
and he's the best. Yeah.
Okay. More of my hate. Torben killing himself. Why did he kill himself?
Because
What?
it was his fault.
What?
The whole thing, everything. The whole coven died because of him. Because I want to go home.
That was stupid.
What a
too.
selfish little brat. But I feel like it was stupid.
King Torben to you.
I feel like it was stupid because it was supposed to be like a dumb Padawan what just wanted to leave the planet. And so he was like, I'm going to go check out this coven because I want to get out of here. And if we can make contact with them, then I get to go home. And because he did that, Soul got that weird fixation, which we don't fully understand yet.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe we won't because he's dead now. But because of Torben, that whole coven died. And he thinks Osha's sister died. And he probably holds himself responsible for this like trauma of Osha. Hence his forced coma. He's like, I can't deal. I'm peacing out.
I just, for a person who is as like simple as I just want to go home.
Yeah.
I feel like how could that character think that deeply? He showed up to a place, defended himself, and people died there. You know what I mean? I'm like, I just don't get the idea of like, I'm ready to kill myself over this, you know, like, and also his makeup when he drinks the poison, I'm like, this guy was like, what, in his 20s at most when he was a Padawan, probably he was supposed to be in his teens.
Yeah. Maybe
10
18.
years later, he has the makeup of like a 60-year-old, like balding beard, like, and he didn't look right at all. I was just like, what is going on? Like,
yeah, that did look really weird. That was the first time we saw his character, and I was
that's
like,
another thing.
This is what Torben looks like?
Yeah. If you're going to age up a character, I feel like you have to show their natural actor self first. Like, why do we see him in makeup? It looks so fake. And I think a lot of this show looked good. I think a lot of the ships did not look good.
Oh, really? Okay.
I thought a lot of them looked very screensaver, except the last episode with that kind of ice field asteroid thing. I thought that actually looked really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Torben killing himself. I get that he would feel guilty, but like not to those throws, because he should have killed someone on accident. He should have blew up something. Like that's the kind of level of like, I'm gonna put myself in a coma, you know?
Do you think there was further torment like left over, not like intentional torment from the witches, but like he was actually possessed?
Yeah.
Like they entered into his mind and spent, I mean, a couple seconds was like several minutes in his mind, and she like really got after him, and that I think messed him up. And maybe it's the fault of like the pacing of the show that they didn't really draw that out and like show him later on still dwelling on it and still like affected by it very much. That didn't stick with us. But I think it might be like he started it and he got possessed and people died. That seems like a lot. But yeah, it could have been like taken home, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my argument with that is like, that is a compelling idea if that's what he was going through, but we did not see that.
Yeah, we don't know. That's
at
a
all.
conjecture.
Like, yeah. So it's like, I think there is reason. I'm not saying there's no reason for him to like feel guilty. I'm just saying like what we saw him do and what was portrayed by him. Like, he was the rash, like, I just want to go home, but like, let's go in here, you know? I don't think that, like, that showed us enough to him. Because, okay, here's the thing, too. That is a super cool scene to, like, here's poison. You should take this poison and end yourself, you know? And I apologize for not being sensitive about suicide because, you know, it's a very serious topic. But I don't mean to, like, laugh and joke about it, but it's what happens in the show. But anyway, so it shows how that moment when he's like, I'm going to take the poison and drink it myself because of the guilt I feel of what I did. Whoa, that is a super interesting idea. Like, what did he do? And your imagination is automatically going.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard because it didn't pay off. Same thing with Luke throwing the lightsaber over. Or, like, it's like that idea is amazing, but there's no follow through. There's not enough for me to be like, that's what happened. Like, that guilt to me is he betrayed them. Like, if he had told the witches or let them go, and then all this bad stuff had happened, or he had joined the witches, you know, like, that's the level of betrayal that you're like, I feel so guilty. I've excluded myself for 10 years.
Yeah, I think, like, that's a really good point of, like, this is obviously a sensitive topic and something that is so, like, people's experience with this topic is so unique and emotional, and it hits a chord in your heart immediately. And so you're right, for it to not, like, be this huge thing, it seems like it was just flippant. Like, he drank the poison, and it, like, his dismay and his state wasn't correctly or appropriately conveyed to us to lead us to understand, like, whoa, yeah, he was gone. Like, he was deep, dark, you know, in a really bad place. I feel that. That one, could have been more threshed out. But I think that, so the flashback episodes were my least favorite parts and almost could have been excluded or put down to one episode. My guess was that my thought was that the flashback, the two episodes could have been closer together. I don't know if back to back would have created the suspense that was created, because episode 3 felt so off. That I was like, there has to be something else. Like, that was choppy. It felt like bad acting, but is it because I'm only seeing half the story? And I think that's what they were trying to do. But then the payoff, like you mentioned a couple times already, like, they create lots of mystery, and they were pretty good at that. And some of them did not pay off. That should have, like, these aren't like long-term mysteries. These are things that should probably be answered within the next episode. I understand that.
I've got a lot more, but I'm just going to do a couple bullet points of, like, so we can kind of wrap up just this discussion, so we don't have to talk about just my hatred for so long. And I'd love to hear your things, but, like, I'll just go through this quick. Torben just showing up dead. I thought that was kind of like blah. We get to see him fight later, which I guess made it for him a little bit, you know, a little better, but I felt like that was wasted. Watching Jedi gather moss.
Oh, did you mean Kilnaka?
Oh yeah, what'd I say?
When you said Torben. When they walk in,
sorry,
Kilnaka's dead.
Kilnaka. Yeah, I just thought that was like a waste of gear.
I heard that there was a fight scene choreographed and written for Kimir and Kilnaka to have, and they cut it. But
I heard that too. Yeah, and I get it because of pacing wise, and then I was bummed that we never got to see him fight, but then we also did later on. And I was like, I think this would have been a better episode if you had to show us these flashbacks, which I don't think they were necessarily. I think they should have been cut together a lot less. Get better actors. I'm sorry, the kid actors. I struggle with kid actors all the time.
It's like, heavy hit or miss. Like,
it's hard. It's like, if you're not Macaulay Culkin, I'm like, I don't need you to stumble through this. You know what I mean? Like, I just I was not feeling it. So, but they should have done it like Fellowship of the Ring style. Start with, there was a legend of a witch, and, like, kind of show us this, like, intercut, cool kind of thing. And then, like, but the Jedi, you know, did this, whatever. But yeah, the Jedi, using metal detectors and literally putting moss in collectors, I thought was just so dumb. Like,
That seems weird.
now you could argue that this is a spiritual test, so they have to do it. But then, like, this seems like droid work. This seems like collecting. And it's like, maybe it's because there's so many Jedi at this era that they don't even have stuff to do. It's like, can you go get coffee? You know, kind of thing.
Yeah, in the era of peace, the protectors of the Republic and democracy are like they're becoming like botanists.
Yeah.
Which is probably why they all got wrecked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing too. But yeah, that to me was just like, that seems weird. Saul stabbing Mother Anastasia. I needed to know more because I think it was like, it looked like to me when you are standing next to a person and they become black mist and then they raise their hand and turn another person into black mist, I think they are attacking that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what Saul did, but I don't know. And then he stabs, you know, he swings at Mother Anastasia to stop it. To me, I felt like this was, you're attacking May, I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
But then it's later said, like, May was like, you just killed our mother, you know? And I feel like I needed more. Like, Saul saying why he did that. Like, I thought she was attacking her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I couldn't let her get away, because that's the dark response, right?
Sure.
Like, I couldn't let her get away, so I had to kill her. Like, oh, okay, Saul's a bad guy. So I don't know if we were supposed to view Saul as a good guy, bad guy, what? Like, I was like, I need more. I need a little bit more. Also, I thought Saul went out like a chump.
Really? You didn't like that?
I don't understand it. So he got choked out, which I don't think we've ever seen a Force user that's been choked out before. Like,
okay,
I thought that would be something natural, kind of like Force pushing someone. Like, you can't
you can force back.
Yeah, because the only time I think we've seen two people Force push each other, to my memory, is like Anakin and Obi-Wan, and it's like this force, right? It's like, I'm trying to push you, you're trying to put, you know.
Yep.
We always see it on
up.
Right. And we've seen it on droids or non-Force users. Same thing. We've never seen a Force choke on a Jedi. And I'm like, it feels like you can't do that, right? Like, it should be or I can block you, right? There's something I can do in the Force, but he seems like, I'm being choked and I can't stop this. Then he said, this is okay.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, why are you okay with this? Did you feel guilty? Because it seems like you did this because you had to. Like, I don't know. I was just confused. Once again, I just needed to know why. Like, why was he okay with this now? And I don't know.
Yeah, I think he let the Force choke happen. Because he's definitely powerful enough to stop. Like, Osha learned how to use the Force, like, a little bit when she was a child, suppressed that for a long time.
Yeah.
And now she's coming back in a fit of rage, and like, so I think that, like, I saw in his face, and from him saying like, it's okay or whatever, like, that to me said, I'm letting you kill me, kind of like Han Solo lets Kylo Ren, spoilers, kill him. I was like, hey, it's okay, buddy. So I likened it to that moment. Why then? Like, he spent the entire time fighting Kamir, probably for survival or potentially for Osha. And then I think it's when he sees Osha and she realizes, like, the depths of his darkness, and he can tell, like, I've lost you, I'll never get you back, and that was the only thing I was fighting for, so you can kill me now.
Yeah.
But
it would have been nice if they told us that. That's the thing. Like, this has the ingredients of a good show.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it worse for me, is like, I find this more exciting than Andor. And I think Andor is some of the highest quality Star Wars we've ever had.
I agree.
I just don't. It's not as swashbuckly. It's not as fun. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I think, I think that's what's frustrating me more is like there's a good story in there, you know, and there's like I think that a lot of it is just the execution. It's just, but tell me if that's what you want me to feel. Like I think they just talked about this on Rebel Force Radio, which if you're a Star Wars fan, you need to check out that podcast. It's great. They talked about this on there is that sometimes it needs to be on the nose. Like sometimes
you have to be careful with that. Yeah.
Right. And that's another thing too, is because we don't want to erase all mystery. We don't want to talk down to an audience, but sometimes we need to know why this character did this.
Yeah.
You know, don't be so mysterious. Okay. Last gripe, I promise.
Okay. You get one gripe and then I get one love.
Yeah. But then I'm done griping too.
Oh, okay. You could do a love.
then,
You can a love too at the end.
We'll talk love because we still haven't talked about Plagueis.
I know.
So Saul, not telling for so long, like literally, like I'm going to tell you everything.
Yeah.
Oh, the Nava computer. I'm going to tell you everything. Like literally episodes.
Unconscious.
Like, stop stringing us along. Like, stop dangling this carrot. It's 8 episodes. You know what I mean? Like, don't bring it up or tell me. I'm just so done. So, okay. So I'm done with my gripes. Tight little
gripes,
bow.
Though.
I appreciate that. I have a lot to say because I'm a passionate fan. I love Star Wars. I think that's why I'm so passionate about this kind of stuff. So those were my issues, but there was also a lot of good in this show too. So let's hear some more of your loves.
I really loved the last episode. I felt that fight between Khmer and Soul felt like a 80s like kung fu movie, you know? Like there was line work. They were like flying through the air, like quadruple kicking each other. They were flipping, and I love that so much. I think it takes so much talent and skills like to do. It was like a Donnie Yen movie. If you've seen like Ip Man, any of those kinds of things, like that stylized. Yeah. Oh yeah, he was in Star Wars. That's right. That kind of stylized fighting, I think, is so fun. And I think that this was a great space. Like this series was a great space for that style to like kind of come through. So I enjoyed all the fight scenes. That fight scene in particular was good. I
have a quick question.
Yes,
because I feel like I'm feeling Plagueis in your.
That was my next thing. Yeah.
I want to ask you just real quick before we get into it because I'd love to know your answer. Who to you is Plagueis in this story? Like, why is he there? Like, not in a bad way. I'm not judging. I want to know what you think.
That's a great question because I think everyone just assumes that we're on the same page, but we're not. So, I love that Plagueis showed up. I have a gripe about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could have done it in a different way than the hand. Like, it seems, like I don't use this term lightly, but it seems like he's a stalker or like a predator, we'll say, which may be intentional, but it seems like Khmer doesn't even know I'm here. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. And I saw some funny things about like was Plagueis just watching Khmer skinny dipping and seductively lure in his apprentice, and he's like, just like I taught him.
My boy,
he learned it from me. So I think the chances that Khmer doesn't know that Plagueis is there are high. I don't think that Khmer wants. If Plagueis is Khmer's active master, and he hasn't like run away from Plagueis or something, because that's a possibility, is that Plagueis has a number of like brewing apprentices or acolytes, and he is no longer one of them, and he's kind of a rogue thing, because Plagueis is a Sith, right? And he was like, you would call me a Sith, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself that. So I feel like he was associated with Plagueis and went off on his own. And Plagueis found him and was like, oh, you have an acolyte. Oh, cortosis. You know, that's what I... just goes...
No, I was curious because I think I've heard some people say it's a gratuitous cameo, kind of like Yoda at the end. It's like, it was just to be like, yeah, like, oh, cool, there's that person. I don't agree with that because I was like, I just want to see those people. I love it. Yoda shows up, like, the back of his head.
Like, thank you for acknowledging the giant stone creature that's now in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. With Captain America new movie.
Yeah, like it's obvious. Just say something.
Yeah. And I think it's cool because it shows the connection, and we see someone like, oh, this is 100 years before the events that we're very familiar with that Yoda is a part of, and we know he's 800 in that episode, or, you know, episode 1. It's like, that's cool that he would be alive, you know. But I think Plagueis showing up was a unnecessary thing, but it's sweet. Like, I loved it. Like, I got to see a live action glimpse of Darth Plagueis. Like, that is really cool to me. And we talked about this a bit, but the Plagueis book is not canon anymore as of yet. But there's a couple things that were brought from it into canon. So we don't know, like Darth Tenebrous, which is his master. We don't know if that's still, you know, how they want to play it. But I thought immediately that the reason I ask you this is because when I saw Plagueis show up, I immediately assumed that this is Chimere's secret master, that he has taught Chimere the dark side, and he's having Chimere do some, you know, Sithy things. So that's why he's like, doesn't show himself to Osha. He's like very Sith, right? Very rule of 2.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to hear you say that, because I'm like, I was not told that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And like, he could have literally just come back home. So in the Plagueis book, which is not canon, he and Tenebrous have a mind that they're finding cortosis. Like, that's very much a part of like what they're doing in their Sithy activities. When you're not making Sith kebabs, you're doing Sithy activities. You
That's
know?
right. Aren't we?
I don't give a Sith. You know, whatever you want to
fair.
do. So it does. I could see that side too, and I was curious what you thought. Like, this could be a like Darth Plagueis coming home, or like, who are these people in my? I think the creepy way he came around the wall. I feel like we all assume that's his voice, right? Like, who are these people in my cave?
Who's in my house?
But so I don't know. It's a bit of a toss up because I'm like, I love that he was there. I love that we got that cameo, but at the same time, it's like, tell us, like, why is he there? You know.
So that you watch the next season,
right? Yeah. And then the whole Plagueis of it, it's like, I don't know, because, well, in the book he has many apprentices, like, or he has several at least, kind of like Darth Sidious. He has Maul that dies, and then he has, you know, and I think Plagueis is actually the one that's handed baby Darth Maul by Mother Talzin.
Oh, really?
In the book, yeah. So like, there's a lot of connection. Like, there's like this rule of 2. And Plagueis actually wants to expand upon the rule of 2. He's like, now is the time the Sith need to come back in full form. We're going to take over the galaxy. I'm going to use Palpatine as my puppet, and I am going to, you know, like, so, and then like, you know, Palpatine obviously stops him, which it's canon because, you know, in Revenge of the Sith, he talks about Darth Plagueis, and we assume that that's his master, but
yeah.
All right. So my thoughts are done. I know we got to wrap up. This episode's going long. So let's hear your final thoughts, my friend, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. I still really like it. I think you've brought to my attention some things I'll have to consider, some questions that have gone unanswered. But for the state of film, and I guess we'll lump in like shows, like whatever, like that kind of stuff. Disney is not creating, nor do I expect them to create, the most compelling stories out there. They're not breaking really any new ground. They're trying to like juggle around and just make as many people happy as possible, I think. If I want like really interesting, new, compelling stories, I got to go to other studios who aren't as big and can take risks like that.
Yeah.
And so when I approach like Ahsoka, Mando, the Acolyte, I feel like a child, you know? And that's part of that like Rebel Force Radio thing that you mentioned. You don't want to talk down to your audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I bring myself down to that level of like, okay, you lower my expectations a bit because there's an aspect of this that is for families and children and that is nostalgic for me. So I still really like it, but I can definitely see like where the storytelling wavered and got very weak, like surprisingly weak, for the budget and for the people involved. But and I'm hopeful that Plagueis is not just a cameo to be like woo, but that he's like a main character next season, or at least like we see him talk and he explains stuff, like his plan. But that's a pipe dream of mine. That's all I got.
Yeah. So I say if you're a Star Wars fan, I do think you have to check it out. I got wary of people talking about why they didn't like it when they hadn't seen it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of gripes there, but it's like if you like Star Wars, check it out. There's some fun in there. There's some great Star Wars.
All the episodes are out. You probably will have a different reaction to it, being able to like watch the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Cool. All right, Andrew, take us home. Oh, actually, let's talk about. So next week we're going to talk about The Hunt for Gollum. We're going to take a deviation from Star Wars, and we're going to talk about new Lord of the Rings movies coming out. So it's going to be fun.
Oh, excellent.
That'll be fun.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you watch our full video show on YouTube, you can see me pointing to Andrew Reel, the Flame of the West, and to a small Lego Millennium Falcon, among other Star Wars memorabilia. So no surprise that we'd pivot from Star Wars into Lord of the Rings. So tune in next week. We'll chat about that. You can find us on Instagram. You can find our podcast wherever you find podcasts. Tune in to YouTube, subscribe, and give us comments on things you'd like to see, thoughts about episodes. We will eat them up. We read every single one. And by every single one, I mean we read the one comment that Heath's mom leaves for us.
I forgot about that.
And we cherish those comments.
She commented on one of my reels. I don't even remember what she said. She was like, "You're so smart."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Thanks, Mom."
That's my boy. Anyway, we love doing this. We love you guys. Share the show. Follow us on the socials. Go see a movie.
Go see a movie.